Hey Racer fans, I hope you're hanging on to your sanity here as we are all pretty much dark for the next few weeks, no racing. So we're going to go back to the Tough Guys series, and I've done 30 of them so far, and what I can't believe is I'd never done Lloyd Ruby before. I got to work for Rube for 2 years in the 70s and got to know him pretty well. Obviously I watched his career, and when you talk to anybody that was somebody in the 60s and 70s and you mention Ruby's name, they just shake their head and go, fabulous race driver, underrated road racer, hell of a midget racer, unluckiest man in the history of the Indy 500, probably tied with Michael Andretti, maybe ahead of Michael Andretti as far as bad breaks. But when you think about Ruby's Indy 500 career, he made 18 consecutive Indy 500s from 1960 to 1977. And yeah, he wasn't always going to win the race, but there was a stretch from 1966 to 70 where he could have won 3 Indy 500s with just a little help. 1966, he led 68 laps and was looking like he was going to win the race, and he broke with 34 laps to go, and then Graham Hill was given the victory. 67, I think he was out first. 68, he comes back. I'm going to check my crib sheet. 68, he led 42 laps and had a long pit stop or something, and that ended up putting him back to 5th. But he led 42 laps, and so he was Bobby Unser and Joe Leonard's competition that day. It wasn't just a two-man show. Of course, in 1969 was the one everybody remembers, is that at the halfway point he was leading Mario Andretti, and he pulled in for a fuel stop. They signaled him to go. The hose wasn't disengaged yet. It just ripped a hole in the side of the fuel tank, and all the fuel rushed out. And the classic picture of Rube getting out of the car and taking off his bandana and just looking down and shaking his head. Walked back to the garage and talked to us all in the media about just one of them things. Nobody's fault. He says, I wanted to get back out because I knew I was leading, and somebody motioned me too early, and it happens. Everybody makes mistakes. I mean, he didn't throw anybody under the bus. That was typical Rube. He just kind of shrugged his shoulders and moved on. And then in 1970, he starts 25th and gets all the way to 1st, and just as he's taking the lead, he gets black flagged because there's smoke pouring out of the back of his car, which was kind of prophetic, wasn't it? That Ruby finally he goes from 25th to 1st, and he passed all those cars. It's an amazing video if you want to see the 1970 race to see what Ruby did, and got all the way up. Him and Foyt had a great battle back and forth. Yeah, Al Unser led most of the race, but when they were racing for 2nd and 3rd place, Foyt and Ruby were trading places like every other lap, and he had just passed AJ. AJ had just come into the pits, and just as AJ comes in the pits, Al Unser had pitted the lap before. So Rube takes the lead and gets the black flag and blows up, and that's the end of that. So I got to work for him in 1974, 1975, and he was wonderful because he couldn't really tell you what was going on with the car. I mean, he could tell you if it was loose or pushing, but he couldn't tell you how to fix it. And I remember we were at Pocono once. Mike Devin, Danny Jones, Darryl Soppy, 3 corners. They went out and watched Rube practice. He'd come in. They'd huddle behind the pit. I'd sit on the side pod with an umbrella because it was hot, and I'd just shoot the breeze with Rube, and they'd come over and they'd say, "Now, Rube, where are your hands in the tunnel turn on the steering wheel?" He'd go, "Hell, I don't know. I guess right. It's good. It's good enough. Let's just go to the bar. It's good. The car's good." So the next day, I think he ran 3rd. So he was one of those guys that was a seat-of-the-pants racer and didn't have a lot of chassis savvy, but he didn't really need it because he was so fast and so good, and he's just such a great guy. So he's in every Hall of Fame you can be in, as he should have been. He won the 24 Hours of Daytona twice. He ran Sebring once. Went to Le Mans, ran the GT40. He was a test driver for the GT40 team. A very underrated road racer, as according to Mario Andretti, who's a pretty good authority in that subject, said, Rube was as good as anybody, and just like that. I mean, he didn't take much time to get up to speed. He was funny, though. Every now and then, he'd stay out a little bit late, till 2 or 3 in the morning, having a few. And one day we were at Michigan, and he saw me working on the car, and I wasn't supposed to touch the car. I was only supposed to hand tools. But that night he had come back he'd come back in from a little party, and he saw me and Jim Bob Lubert. We were the only two guys there working on. Jim Bob was putting the rear end back together, and Rube saw me and said, he ain't supposed to touch that car. And I said, calm down, Rube. I'm just handing Jim Bob the tools. So the next day he finished third, and I said, see, you don't have anything to worry about. I didn't touch the car. I don't know how you can put into words, though, how you couldn't have a more humble, just a respectful, wonderful guy than Lloyd Ruby was. And I'm really thankful I got to know him and work for him and be around him as much as I was, because he was such a treat. And a guy had the greatest driver ever to win the Indy 500. That's what a lot of people say. It's probably something that when you think of Lloyd Ruby, you think of all his tough luck. But remember this: yeah, he had a lot of tough luck, but he was one hell of a race driver. So this is Robin Miller. Thanks for watching RACER.com through this tough time. I think we're going to have Sammy Sessions next, and then maybe Iron Mike Nazarick, and then maybe we'll show some old tough guys trying to get everybody through the next 4 or 5 weeks without any racing fixes. Thanks for watching.